by somebody that couldn't have weighed more than 140 pounds. I don't, even when I wrestled, I wasn't a big head banger. You know, with the leg locks and the no-gi and the cool rash guards and the cool names.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is the one we've all been waiting for.
It's good night, freaking Irene! Let's get ready to rumble!
Time! And knows how to knock people the fire truck out.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Chase Muay Thai MMA podcast. I'm Kelly Green from Fight Chase, along with my co-host Kurt Brooks from Carson Kickboxing. And today we have a special guest, Joseph Henle from the States now, just recently back from the Tiger Muay Thai tryouts. So we'll get into it. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
I'm pretty good.
Not enjoying this. Well, the weather's actually nice, but I'm over here in New Hampshire now. So it's like 65, and the whole time I was in Thailand, it was never under 75, so it's a little shock.
Yeah, never under 75.
Yes. So, let's get a little backstory on Joe. Like, when did you get into martial arts? Like, not even MMA, but like, did you start as like a kid with karate or any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I started real young in Taekwondo. I want to say probably, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe even a little younger. My mom got me into it, and it was a blast. I had a lot of fun, and then that just kind of blossomed into more sports and athletics. So, yeah, Taekwondo kind of got me started, and then I guess you would say traditional athletics just kind of took over for a bit before wrestling in high school.
Okay. And then when did you move into MMA?
Oh, so that was after college. So like my major sports through high school were football, wrestling, and tennis. And then I continued playing football in college. And my first real dive into MMA was kind of taking a jiu-jitsu class, I want to say 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, the tail end of 2005, and I had just come off my last football season. I was looking for something different. I just didn't want to be in the gym. I didn't really have the meathead mentality, and I just didn't feel like pushing around heavy weights anymore.
Yeah.
And found a gym with Brian Peterson as a coach, and they were doing jiu-jitsu, and I had no idea what that was, and was like, sure, I'll come in and try it. It's like wrestling, it'll be a good workout. I can lose some weight. Ended up getting mauled by somebody that couldn't have weighed more than 140 pounds, and I was very confused.
The story of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, because I was very big and very strong at the time, and I was like, I should be able to push this little man off me, but yet I can do nothing. And so ever since then, it was like, all right, you gotta show me what you're doing, because I don't ever want that I don't want that feeling again. So yeah, ever since then, it just kind of blossomed from there. It was jiu-jitsu, and then randomly one day, Carl Parisian and Loden Sincade were in the gym, and they were getting ready for fights. And I just walked into class, and they were like, hey, you're a big guy. Have you ever done any striking before? I'm like, I did Taekwondo when I was young. I wrestled in high school. They were like, perfect. You come train with us. And I'm like, like they're putting on like little 4-ounce gloves, and I'm looking at them like, Loden's crazy looking. Carl was Carl, and it's one of those things where you're like, I don't know if I should be doing this. And they're like, no, it's fine. But we're just kind of playing around. Like it's, we're just going through these rounds. You'll only do like 2 minutes. You'll be fine. Like, okay, sure, I'll try it. And the next day, my face is all marked up, and I'm playing golf with my best friend, his family, and they're looking at me like, what the fuck happened to you? And I'm like, oh my God. So I had so much fun at this place last night. What they do is MMA, and everybody's looking at me like I've lost my mind. And yeah, I was just basically hooked from then.
Yeah, I've had plenty of those days. My face gets like gi burn like super easy. And I remember when I was in Vegas, I would leave the gym and I'd go to like the store on the way home, get dinner. and people would just be staring at me. It looks like I fell out of a car face first. Like, it didn't take any effort, but it was like my face was all marked up, and I never even paid attention to it, but people are like staring at me crazy.
It's funny, one of those things, especially like fair-skinned people. I mean, the geek can just murder their
Oh, yeah.
face.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
like I catch gi burn on the face, but I mean, I'm pretty tan, so I don't even it goes away quickly. But
Yeah.
yeah, you get a bit of fair skin, and the world
Oh,
will
no.
see.
Yeah, no, I look like a wreck after training. It only lasts for like a day or two, but yeah, it's horrible.
Every time too.
Yeah, every time. And I use my face to pass, so I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah,
uh,
it's funny. I think I've kept my face out of everything for the most part. Like I don't have cauliflower ear. I don't even when I wrestled, it just wasn't. I wasn't a big head banger.
yeah. Yeah, we had a lot of wrestlers because in Vandalays, where Kurt and I both came from, it was very like MMA based with everything. So it
Yeah,
was pressure passing and things like that. And I just became real comfortable with using my head to pass, with the
yeah.
pressure. Yeah, I got cauliflower ear, got all sorts of jacked up, and it was like, well, I'm old enough now. I don't have to look pretty anymore, so it doesn't matter. So,
It's just it's nature's warning signs.
yeah, right, exactly. um, so you got into MMA. When we met, you said you had like a decent job in Cali and stuff like that. And then you decided you wanted to get back into MMA. How long were you in MMA? Was it a part-time thing, or was it like
Uh,
you really wanted to make a run, or how did that go when you started?
I mean, I think MMA is always a part-time thing for
Yeah.
anybody that got into it later.
Hmm.
You get kids nowadays jumping in and they've been training since they were 15, and they either live with their parents still, or they're doing this, they're doing that, and they don't really have the monetary requirements that a mid 20-year-old fresh out of college and working in NBA would have. So
Yeah.
even before then, it was hard. It was one of those things where you train, and I remember training those first couple of years while I was doing my MBA, and I was like, I took a couple of amateur fights, and I'm like, shit, this is a lot of fun, and I ended up taking almost 10 amateur fights and winning all but one, I think, and it was like, what, maybe I'd like to do this, try a pro fight, and but at all the time, and there was never a thought then that it was like, oh, this will be like a career, and this will be something that'll make me money. It was more just like, oh man, this is fun. Like, of course, I still got to go. I mean, at the time, I was a substitute teacher, and I was bouncing at a bar, and doing all these things to pay the bills. But I was like, this stuff's fun. Like, what the hey, we'll just keep on going, and then just kind of kept going. So it hasn't 10 years in now, this is the first 6 months I've ever had where it was like I didn't have anything to focus on other than training.
Yeah. And that's when you were over
So
at Tiger.
yeah, that's when I came out to Tiger this past January. So it's always been a part-time endeavor, but in the past it was, I kept the odds and ends jobs instead of getting a quote unquote real job, just so I could fit it around training. But right around 2013, I had broke the end of 2012. I fought in MFC in Canada. I broke my hand. I tore my MCL all in the same fight. Um, and then 6 months later, I was able to recover, take another fight, broke my hand again, required 2 surgeries this time. And so then it was like, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to fight for, at least 8 months.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and I was a substitute teacher, and over the summer, they don't have jobs for substitute teachers, and you don't get paid. So I'm like, okay, like how am I going to pay rent? And so I had to go. I ended up getting a job, what started as a temporary job at my alma mater, kind of like as a online assistant for the MBA program at California Lutheran University, and then that just kind of, while I'm healing from the hand, getting over some life things, and then now all of a sudden, working a job that was actually paying a little bit of money. It's probably the first time in a while that I actually got paid. And I just happened to be good at that job. So it kind of rolled into other opportunities. And eventually, in 2016, I ended up working as a LMS support specialist for Sage Publishing, which is a higher education textbook publisher, and was making really good money, living in Ventura, enjoying the life. And I was still taking fights, but it was just hard. It's one of those things where you fit a strength session in 3 days a week at 5 a.m., before you go to work, and then you work all day. And then I didn't have any fights scheduled, so I was coaching football. So now I coach football from 3 to 6, 7 every day, and then bam, you're trying to catch a training at night. So it's the training wasn't the focus. It was just fit in what could. So that always makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you said, unless you're at that level, you're 1FC or UFC. I don't know anybody and even those guys, most of them are still like coaches, like to try and supplement income. They'll get a fight twice a year and then they'll be coaches at gyms, in which they don't make a bunch of money, but they're like, okay, well, I don't have to pay for training and that kind of thing. So it's
to me it's always something, because everybody, I mean, it really again, right, depends on the lifestyle that you live and the things that you're trying to do. But I feel like a lot of these guys will fight 3 times a year, 2 times a year, and it just depends on how much you make. I mean, if you're a guy that's only making 10 grand and you lose 2 fights in a year, all right, well, you only made 20 grand and really you only made about 10. So
yeah,
another job is depending on your lifestyle. Now, if you're living by yourself in a single room and all you got to do is feed yourself, not too bad. But you get these guys that are out here with families and trying to buy houses and trying to really level up monetarily, but fighting is just not really the solution for 99% of us.
And it's kind of sad. I mean, like with the UFC having whatever it is, over 400 fighters on the roster, and it's become so popular, and there's so many fights all over the place, but fighters still can't make money. Like, unless you're up there, you're not making good money. And
yeah, but you know what? I mean, I sit on a weird side on that debate, because a lot of fighters, even a lot of guys in the UFC, I mean, you want to talk about technically good, they're really not.
Right.
And so I really don't, you ask my opinion about it, I'll tell you, I think really only the guys that are making waves or that really stand out are the ones that should be making money. They're the, I mean, everybody will watch a fight, and they can't tell the difference between somebody with a lot of skill and somebody with no skill. If 2 people are swinging,
definitely.
People are happy. But as somebody that appreciates a specific skill set and skill level, you watch a lot of these guys fight, and I'm like, I'm glad you don't get paid a whole lot. Like, and I say you don't get paid a whole lot. If I was getting paid 10 to 20 grand a fight, I'd be ecstatic. I'd be huge.
Oh,
that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, that's not bad for a night's work.
Yeah, right. I mean, the most I've ever made from a fight was $6 grand.
Yeah.
And that's being a professional for 10 years. I've fought in Canada, I've fought in Moscow. I mean, I've fought everywhere, and that's the most I've ever fought. And that was just recently for that Golden Boy promotion. So
okay, yeah, I did see that you were on that card with it was the Tito and Chuck fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. How was that? Like, as far as the promotion went, because that kind of ended up being a shit show, didn't it?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I mean,
in the public's eye, it did.
I mean, they obviously overpaid. I mean, they did one of those things, and I tell people all the time that this is the hard thing is, a pay-per-view requires, at least 4 people that people really want to watch. You have to have an undercard that's worth it, and you have to have a main event that's going to be competitive. Yeah, the Chuck and Tito thing, I mean, it was never really competitive. I mean, it even just watching the training footage, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Chuck guy, but watching the footage and you're kind of watching him train, and you're like, I don't know about this, and I think having that out there, people were like, they really.
It wasn't the best hype videos.
Yeah, he looked like there was something off about him when he was hitting pads. It just didn't look right. It didn't.
He's
It
his
just didn't
age.
look right. Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing to be an older fighter in the game if you've consistently been fighting. Like, you got to give Tito his credit. Tito's had a fight every year for the last 8 years, even if it's just one, and you still see him in the gym training with guys that are still fighting a lot. So it's not like even if he gets out, he goes and does family things or speaking engagements, whatever. But you can still he's keeping a consistent training going. As where with Chuck, it's not like you see him in the gym. He's 48. His knees weren't great when he was fighting. So, let's be honest, those don't get any better with age.
Yeah.
And so, and his style was really predicated on timing and being able to move at a certain speed, you know what I mean? And once that was gone, you were just like, oh, this is not going to be good.
And then his style didn't it didn't help the situation either. I mean, Tito's kind of like, he's take you down and smother you and whatever, but Chuck wanted to stand and bang, and he took shots. And then especially at the end of his UFC career, he was taking lots of hard shots. That adds up. And then later on, you're going to, you want to get back into it after being out. And everybody said he was like the rock star of, MMA for a long time, just partying and stuff too. So.
Yeah, I'm sure he hasn't had the easiest life on his body. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, hey, I would never want to stop anybody from wanting to get in there, and I know he doesn't. I know he has his personal feelings for Tito were strong enough where I'm like, all right, man, if you want to do it, like, I don't think it's good, but somebody's also going to pay you $250,000 to get in there.
yeah.
Who am I to tell you no?
Yeah, if I saw that paycheck, I'd probably do it too.
Oh yeah, I'd fight Chuck. Like
I'd fight John Jones for that. I'd
exactly.
be like, you pick a name, sure. Like, yeah, give me Francis Ngannou. Yeah, $250,000. Yeah, I'll fight anybody. Let's do this.
Yeah, they don't need to even make weight. Let's just get in there.
Yeah, like make it super heavy. We're fine. Everything's good.
Yeah.
So that was, but it was sad to be there. It was hard to watch because they had so many fights on the card. They had 5 amateur fights, and I want to say 6 pro fights outside of the main card 5 fights.
Damn, that's a long night.
So, oh Jesus! And so, being a swing bout, I had to get there first. So I was the first one in the building. Sat through 5 amateur fights, and then they were like, okay, you're going to be the second pro fight. And then the first pro fight went out, and they're like, hold on, now we're going to do some rearranging. You're going to be the last pro fight before the main card. We're like, okay. And they're like, you'll for sure go before the main card. And then sure enough, the fight before me goes a little long. They're like, now you're going to go after the main card. So then we're like, all right, well, cool. So now we're sitting here, sit through the, most of the main card. Right before the co-main event, they come up and they're like, hey, you're going to be the fight right after the main event. Like, okay, cool. The main event starts. They come out. Okay, now you're going to be the last fight of the night. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But actually, it actually ended up working out well because the arena emptied after Chuck and Tito.
Yeah.
And so all my friends and family basically just got to come wherever they wanted in the stadium or, in the forum. So they were sitting, cage side, or my mom had a great seat, kind of up in the first levels. And, everybody was super excited. And the fact that I was able to make it a quick fight, everybody was like, good, now we get to get out of here. It's not like we're just sitting in the forum, having a boring fight that everybody's just sitting here like, oh God, I hope this ends soon.
And then nobody can see. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I mean, it was like a private fight, so.
I've had those a couple times, but it's just, it's one of those things where I felt like I don't know, Keith Berry, the guy that I fought, was a Bellator alum, Strikeforce alum. I'm a TUF alum, MFC. I mean, M1 Global. Like, why not have us before the main event? Like, even just as a fight, like, we stylistically look like a good fight, and yet they had guys go right before. Like as the stadium's getting crowded, they've got guys that are 1-0, 2-0, 1-1.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm like, what? How? Why are these guys getting the opportunity to be on, your pre-show or whatever, or be fighting in front of all these people? And you got, I mean, between Keith and I mean, we probably have 40 fights, and I'm like, we're just kind of the last one. So it's little things like that where you're like, okay, I feel a little disrespected, but I'll take the paycheck and a quick win, and we'll run with it. So there's little things like that. But I thought the promotion actually did an okay job. I mean, everything went smooth. Weigh-ins were smooth. All that stuff was all right. There were just little communication things where, like, I didn't know I had a hotel room. Now, granted, I live in LA, So I was right down the street. I wouldn't have wanted to stay in the hotel anyways. But
Yeah.
we just didn't know if we had that or this or that. So little things, but nothing bad as other promotions have been, or nothing that was like so glaring that you were like, oh my god, I hope they never do a show again.
Well, that's the thing is like there was a lot of people that were kind of hard on it, but then also when you think about it, that was literally their first show.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's I mean they're a boxing promotion. They don't know it's a little different how everybody gets ready and how this and that. And I mean the one thing I will complain about was like literally we're at the Forum. Like you're gonna tell me there's not a locker room in the Forum? I was sitting in the back hallway with some sheets sitting up, no mats to do anything on. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like we're seeing pictures of Chuck and Tito in their basically what looked like a private villa, and
Yeah.
Tito's running around the stadium, and I'm like, and I can't even get a mat to do some jiu-jitsu or roll on, like So it was one of those where you're just like, okay, you guys, little things, you know what I mean? First show, it's little things. They don't know. They're not MMA guys. I've had full-on MMA promotions that didn't do anything like that. So you just kind
of course.
you just stare at them and you just go, okay, well, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. What gym are you out of right now? Like as far as at home in the States?
When I'm home, it's Knuckleheads Boxing in Ventura, led by Joseph Janik, and then Barumbi Academy Jiu-Jitsu, led by Fabio Leopoldo. Oh, and it's one of those things. I mean, once you're a black belt, and it just, I don't know. I remember it just kind of felt like I'm starting over, and now you really start looking deeper into positions, and I don't know. It turned less about the competitive. I just need to win in every role. Now it's like, okay, I really need to, be able to better understand exactly what I'm doing, why I do it, how other people do it. I mean, jiu-jitsu is so endless with all of the different positions and ways to attack and, things like that. So, and people are always reinventing the wheel. There's always something that used to get used that everybody ditched and now all of a sudden is super hot again. And, it's always good to pick everybody's brain and just see what techniques are kind of at the forefront, what's coming up, how are people using it. Always fun stuff to dive into.
Yeah, I just got back into training jiu-jitsu over here. I'm in a Henzo Gracie in New Hampshire. I'm assistant coaching because I didn't want to take like classes, like take over classes again. So I'm assistant coaching the Muay Thai program because I'm planning on getting back to Thailand as fast as possible. So I started there. I basically took over their Muay Thai program when I got here. I was here for 2 years previously before going over to Thailand for a year. And so I set up the whole program, got it running good, but I wasn't able to train jiu-jitsu as much as I wanted to. And I got my purple belt there. And then when I came back this time and I just started training jiu-jitsu with those guys again, we're so close to Henzo's in New York that a lot of our guys are training with like Danaher, Death Squad, all those guys. So, man, the stuff that they come back with, and they're going up there like every other weekend, and they're coming back with the hottest, newest leg locks and Kimura traps and whatever like Danaher's come up with, and he's a mastermind anyway. So it's like I get all these weird looks, and it's like, oh my god, man, where'd you guys get this now?
His stuff is fun, and I like the way that he explains stuff. So I mean, I'm a big learner, and so I'm always find something. So I bought his DVDs. So I have the Kimura trap, the back take, the front headlock, the leg locks, and they're packed with so much knowledge and so many. The way that he breaks it down from position to control to the break, and you're always just like, okay, that's amazing, thank you. Like I mean, it's helping me understand positions that were never a strong suit. Like taking the back was never a strong suit for me. It wasn't something that I ever used to really try to get to because I always felt like, well, it's just, I don't, my control isn't there or this and that. Somebody gets slippery, there they go. At least for me in the past. And so now, going back and watching the DVDs and see how he talks about it, and talks about little things, you're like, oh, you pick up those small little details that really make all the difference in the world.
Oh yeah, definitely. Jiu-jitsu is still your first love, I mean, obviously MMA you get into striking, but jiu-jitsu is your
Yeah.
bread and butter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's what I enjoy doing. I mean, I can do jujitsu 24/7,
Yeah.
7 days a week. I mean, I'll never get bored with jujitsu now. I think my mindset used to get me a little bit bored. It used to be hard. Our academy is here in Ventura and Thousand Oaks has grown so much. When I started 11 years ago with Professor Fabio, I mean, everything's cyclical. You come in, especially, guys come in, they train for a long time and then, something happens and they're not there. Or, you have
Yeah.
bigger guys at one point, now you don't. And so for a while, I want to say 5 or 6 years in, my timing, getting to class. So I ended up just rolling with either the exact same people, but they were usually smaller. And then I couldn't get there the days the bigger or the higher level guys were there. And so I was a little bored in that sense because at the time I was still thinking it was just competitive. And so it's like, well, I'm winning, I'm bored, not really thinking or understanding, the positions like an older guy would or an
Yeah.
older man should. So, for me now, I mean, I could roll with anybody and still pick things up and learn things because now I'm specifically working on things, to me, it's just a mindset that I wish I would have had when I was younger. But also having, the opportunity to have these DVDs and YouTube and, I mean, people make fun of people all the time. Don't go to YouTube and get a technique. I'm like, why not? Like, go to YouTube, see the techniques. Is it sound? I mean, have you see a lot of guys get there, and it's hard for a white belt because a white belt, blue belt, there's so much out there
Yeah.
that they couldn't tell you the difference between a good technique, a bad technique. They don't even have technique yet. They're still in that infancy of, ooh, we're hugging people and trying to break arms. They don't
Yeah.
quite get there yet. And so, but I love to. I'll take a peek. Somebody shoots me something over, and I'm like, all right, that's interesting. Because there's always some small detail that you can probably take away from it. And it's one of those things that you just, you keep your eyes open. You be receptive to things, and God, you pick things up everywhere.
Yeah, you'll never know what the next thing is going to be, or even if the move that the person's showing isn't applicable to what you do, but maybe there's a part of it that is, or maybe it doesn't fit your body style, but you can explain it to somebody else. Especially the guys that do come in and go, "Hey, did you see this video? They did this," and you're like, "Well, that doesn't really work in this situation." But it is like the newer guys type of thing. They do it in striking the same way. They want to know how to do spinning, back elbows, and I'm like, you can't throw a 1-2. I'm not telling you how to do any of that stuff. You don't even know how to stand up, So
Well,
I think a lot of those. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's hard because you don't want to squash their enthusiasm.
oh yeah,
You know what I
definitely.
mean? Especially with beginners, are like, well, I'm super excited that you want to do the really cool stuff, but also you should probably learn how to retain your guard.
Yeah.
I get a lot of guys that 10th Planet is so popular, with the leg locks and the nogi and the cool rash guards and the cool names, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome, and they have so much good stuff. But you get guys that have only been training for 6 months and are going for heel hooks and don't know how to do anything else. So I'm like, you can't pass guard, you can't retain guard, you can't even recover guard. You're going to go for a heel hook. It's cool that you're excited about that, but this is going to get very frustrating for you rolling with anybody that even has an inkling of how to do any of those other things, like the base level, protect yourself. You're going to have a hell of a hard time with. And now, I mean, if you're only doing sub-only tournaments, okay, maybe there's a different, mentality for that. But I don't know. I like being able to have a base. And for me, it comes down to being able to teach.
Yeah.
How can I teach you to be safe if I can't teach you how the basics? Oh, great, I can teach you a flying armbar, but how do you get an armbar from guard? How do you. So for me, I always go back to basics, and especially being a fighter, most guys don't have something that they can fall back on when they're done fighting. Like
Yeah.
they may be a good fighter, but they didn't necessarily learn a whole lot. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Their striking is rudimentary at best. their jiu-jitsu is blue belt at best, and they've been fighting for 10 years. You're like, well, what did you learn in those 10 years? What are you going to be able to do to transition yourself to the next phase of life? Oh, well, I'm going to be a realtor. Like, and no offense to everybody that's got their realtor's license, but that's kind of like, that's where you see a ton of guys going in. It's like, well, I'm going to retire from fighting. I'm going to be a realtor, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like, hey, good luck on the transition. I hope you make all the money in the world, and I hope you're happy. But holy hell, like, to me, I love martial arts. I love jiu-jitsu. I love boxing. I love Muay Thai, kickboxing. Like, I want to be involved with this for life. And so, for me, the past 10 years have been a skill building exercise. I'm trying to tuck away as much knowledge as I can, and to be able to, kind of at least regurgitate something, in the coming years when my body says, yeah, you're done.
Right, and it's one of those things is the difference between a fighter, and a coach is like you'll see a lot of the guys that were fighters and they become coaches, and it doesn't transfer over because they just don't know how to, explain things the same way. Because if you naturally get something, like when I do jujitsu, there's things that I do that I think of body mechanics. I don't think of the actual this is the name of it and this is how I get it. It's more of like, oh, this presented itself. So for me to teach jujitsu, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with my jujitsu, but I'm not comfortable explaining it to somebody else at this point. So that's something I'm working on now because I do want to have that in the future. And like my striking, like I've gotten to train with all these amazing people and I try to take in as much as I can, but I can also break it down, straight from how your feet are and on the way up, like how to move your hips and all that things. And I found myself being able to explain stand up very easily to, from a beginner to a pro fighter. And it's a thing that, and you guys, Kurt's also had some fights too. But Kurt transitioned, Kurt's a black belt and he runs a Muay Thai program now too. So it's like, it's a certain character aspect of a person, because fighters typically are very selfish. I mean, they have to be. You're the only one in there, and you got some coaches kind of telling you what to do, but at the end of the day, you have to go in a cage, and you got to basically fight for your life. So you have to get the best training and training. It can't always be like, oh, I'm trying to help this other guy out. If you have a fight coming up, you're not going to go like half-assed training, you have to get your training in. So they don't always transfer over to the best coaches. And I've actually, I've had coaches that I'm like, man, you're a great fighter, but you can only show me the little that you know. You can't really explain outside of the box of what you perform well.
I think too. I think a lot of that too is like a lot of fighters. What they do is unconscious. They're really good at things, but they're unconsciously doing it just because they've drilled and fought for so long, and then they're not able to like consciously break it down the way that a beginner or somebody that's a lower level than them would understand. Is I think what happens a lot of times. That's why not every fighter is the best coach, even if they were a great fighter.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. I also feel it's one of those things that fighters train. But to me, there's a difference between training and learning.
Oh,
You're training, you're going into autopilot mode, and not enough people spend enough time learning. So everybody's like, oh man, I'm back in the gym. Okay, but like, were you really skill building, or were you just doing the same thing that you have been doing? Let's do some bag work. Let's do this. Like, what skills were you learning? What little things were, what did you take from your last fight and say, okay, here's something that I've been doing wrong, or I haven't been doing as well. How can I learn something new there? Or, for a stand-up guy, okay, if I'm not in camp, I should hit the jiu-jitsu mat.
Yeah.
Let's go do more jiu-jitsu. I need to skill build my jiu-jitsu. Now, when a fight comes on, hey, now you schedule in your bread and butter. Because to me, a fight camp is a time to sharpen skills, not learn skills.
Exactly.
Like I shouldn't need to teach you how to get off the cage in fight camp. You should know that.
Yeah, it's too late.
Yeah, you should have one or two escapes from that position that you already know, that you're already good at. And, once fight camp's out, okay, let's learn some transitions from there. Let's learn some different things. So maybe you can throw in a wrinkle later, but, I don't need you rolling, for a heel hook if that's not your deal. And you see guys all the time when somebody's trying to teach them something like, oh man, this move would be the move. You're like, no, please stop talking right now.
Yeah.
Oh man, I see it too. Even like right before guys are going to go out to fight, they'll have coaches like trying to teach them a new technique, and I'm like, man, what are you doing? They're not going to retain this. They're not going to remember what you're telling them.
And it's crazy, and that's the thing is you see people do it all the time because it's, they just think, well, man, if you could just do this move, and you're like, it's never just that. Like, it's never that. It's a constant combination of, position, timing, understanding. Don't show me something in the back. That actually bugs the shit out of me as a fighter when I've had people try to tell me something, and I'm like, after the fight, like, nothing about what you're saying right now. Excuse me, is gonna.
You guys are saying that you shouldn't learn like the Showtime kick in the changing room? Is that not a good time? Well, I have the same thing now. As I have a young fighter. This kid is a jiu-jitsu phenom. He's actually surpassed the instructor as far as coaching in the gym that he's at. So I mean, he's 21. He's just got his black belt. But he's rolling with all the Henzo guys. He's rolling all the Danaher's guys, like on a consistent basis. He can, hang with 90% of them. He could get submissions. He's sick, and he's an MMA fighter. And so he has the thing is like he's just doing jiu-jitsu and kind of maybe a little stand-up here and there if there's not a fight coming up. And I'm like, man, you should be working on your stand-up.
The opposite.
Yeah.
If you want to fight, now you should switch it up. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, to me, it's very important to build a base of something before you fight. Yeah. So, if I could go back, I see these kids going pro at 21, and I'm like, oh God, stop. Like, you've only been training, hopefully they've been training for, at least 5 years. And in that 5 years, like, I would prefer, especially in the beginning, to start with something, not just MMA, get a base of, take a year and only wrestle, take a year and only do jiu-jitsu, like build a base that then you can move on. I hate seeing people that are professionals that are blue belts. I'm like, how are you a professional and a blue belt, for Christ's sakes? Like, please, for the love of God, like, and you don't have to, in my opinion, you don't have to do the gi to have a ranking. Like, you can understand somebody's skill level when you roll with them. Be like, all right, yeah, that's blue belt level. Okay, yeah, exactly. That's like all these guys that are always like, no, I don't do jiu-jitsu. No, I don't have a rank. I only do no-gi. Well, no shit. But the rankings are more or less an assumption of your skill. It's an evaluation of your skill. So, you can still roll. I mean, even the way I roll is fight-based. Everything I do is for positional control and where I can hit you. Even when I'm rolling normal jiu-jitsu, I'm like, that's my game. Yeah. So, I hate that excuse from people, but you just see kids jumping in there so early when you're like, you didn't need to make that jump. Like, one, you're not going to make any money, so stop worrying about that. Like, don't make the jump until you actually have the skill set to put you in an elite level. Too many people jump in saying, "Oh, I'll fight anybody." You're like, "No, you're not good enough to fight anybody."
Not good enough to fight most people.
Like, you need to dial down your eagerness, your ego, and say, "Okay, let's take smart fights." Yeah. At 1-0, let's fight somebody that's 1-0. Let's fight somebody that's 2-0, but let's not fight somebody that's 7-0.
Oh yeah, I feel like a lot of younger fighters kind of destroy their confidence, taking fights with somebody that has that level of experience, because they will fight anybody. And I really think that's when, you got to have a good coach or somebody that's watching after you step in and be like, maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. I mean, to me, it's a fighter mentality, right? I mean, we want to fight anybody. I do. I'll fight anybody on the planet. I don't care. Size, weight, whatever. I'd fight anybody. But my coach is smart about, well, we all know a career is a career, and some guys make it, some guys don't. Some guys fight everybody, some guys don't, but there's no need to, especially like last minute fights. I don't take last minute fights anymore. I won't, if I'm not in shape and ready to go, I'm not taking a fight. Why? I'm going to be 36 in 2 weeks. And honestly, it's not like I just don't need to put myself out there. Like, I'm very skilled. I need to be, if I'm going to fight, I want to show what I have, not what I have right now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. If the UFC came knocking and we're like, yo, we need a heavyweight tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? A lot of people take last minute fights just as a money grab, and it's not even that much money. And it's like, and then you run into this habit of, well, these are the only fights I'm being offered. Okay, and that's a tough thing for fighters right now. Is there's so many of us that why pay? Why pay anybody? There's going to be somebody that'll take it for less. So why pay you? Me being what am I? I'm 11-4-1, 11-4-1, Ultimate Fighter veteran, fought for MFC's middleweight title, fought M1 Global, all these different promotions. I'm going to go to LFA and get offered, $1,500 to fight. Like, I made more than that in my very first fight in 2009, but I'm going to get offered the exact same money right now. Like, what can I do? Because there's going to be a 5-0 guy from that area that will do it for that amount of money. So why pay this veteran more? And you can't even blame the promotions. You just go, well, shit, okay, well.
Yeah,
what are you
they're
gonna
just
do?
running it like a business. I mean, that's all it is, and it sucks because with the boom of even jiu-jitsu and just MMA and all of that. I mean, you're in California. When Kurt and I were in Vegas, when we would go to California for like Worlds and stuff, we were just like, what the hell? Every strip mall has a jiu-jitsu place. Like, we used to go over to like Checkmat and stuff like that in Huntington Beach, and it was like, holy shit, everywhere has a jiu-jitsu place. So you can train any.
There's a Gracie Baja in every corner.
Yeah, so it was like, man, so that like boom just flooded the market. And we used to have, like, we were at Vanderlei, so we were at MMA gym, and we would have people come in, and that's what it was. They weren't coming in to train something. They were coming in to train MMA. And you're like, well, MMA is not really the sport. Like, it's mixed martial arts. You kind of got to get something. And they just wanted to do everything.
And that just goes back to, you need a base. Like,
yes,
I can't teach you striking unless you know how to defend a takedown. I can't teach you, as far as like an MMA fighter goes, because it's like, that's like saying, okay, well, I'm going to go to school, but I just need one class that covers everything. You're like, okay, that's not there's a reason we break it down into mathematics, and you got to take your basic math skills before you take your accounting, and you got to take your accounting before you jump into your finance class. Like, there's a reason you build on those skill sets to get in, and to start with MMA, you're like, sorry, bro, that's like, good luck with that. Like,
well, even when I got into, I mean, within a month, I started with Muay Thai, and then no-gi jiu-jitsu, and then the MMA classes that I was doing within a month. And once I got the jiu-jitsu bug, I told our coach, I was like, hey, I want to do a tournament. He goes, okay. And I said, I'll come in the mornings so I can get more training. And he's like, in the mornings for what? And I'm like, well, to get more training. I'm only going to compete no-gi. And he goes, well, then you need to show up for the gi class too. And I'm like, what? But it helps. I mean, it helps with grips. It helps with understanding your movement. I mean, so I'm not a stickler to be like, oh, you have to train in the gi, but it helped me, is all around in jiu-jitsu. So I don't understand, it's like you're saying, I'm not going to go and say, I want to have a business degree. Where's the business class at? Like, that's the only one I need to take is a business.
No, I don't need marketing. I need business. Where is business? But to me, I mean, all of it, especially for young fighters, is mat time. Young jiu-jitsu. I mean, whether you're a white belt, blue belt, purple belt, even, you just need mat time. You just need to get out there and just constantly be on the mats. Whether it's in the gi, it's without the gi. Like, you just need to feel what's happening. You need to have an understanding of that. Like, you don't have a game yet. You have a base level understanding of what's happening. You have no game. It's not till you get to purple belt that you really start going, oh man, this is more my bread and butter. I think at white say, ooh, this move is my game. And once you start to hit purple belt, it's like, okay, no, I like this position. This position takes me to these different things and so things like that. But yeah, as far as competition for young kids, I'm always like, oh Jesus, please, for the love of God, do everything. Every jiu-jitsu tournament, every amateur boxing tournament, get at amateur fights. Like, people just undervalue those competitions. They don't yet understand that if you really want to be a professional, and the best way to do it is to be so comfortable in competition that nothing phases you. And you do that by doing all of these amateur competitions. Nobody gives a damn what your jiu-jitsu record is. Nobody's coming up to you and asking, oh man, well, hey, what's your record in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. I don't give a damn. Like, I just need you getting matches. And amateur boxing, of course the stance is different. Of course this is that. Get in, go do it. Get out there. Do the Muay Thai championships. Go do this, go do that. Get as much mat time in every single discipline as you possibly can. And you can't hammer that home enough, especially with these young kids and people really trying to get in it. They want to be fighting pro within 6 months, and you're like, it's just a terrible idea.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's even going to have to where you're living, Cali, Vegas. You can get fights all the time. We're out here in New Hampshire, and we have like one organization between here and like Mass is very small. So it's like it's harder for these guys to get fights, and so now they're going even longer between fights without traveling a whole bunch. But then they're young kids, so they're having like their jobs and trying to make money and coaching or whatever. So now they're trying to get training, work, and then travel for a fight. It's harder for them to even get fights. So yeah, like jiu-jitsu tournaments, small, smokers, whatever it is, get experience. Get experience doing things in front of people, whether it's a jiu-jitsu tournament.
And once you do that, you know what I mean? Then it's you build. Once you finally do become a pro, and somebody says, okay, you got to travel for this, like you're going there. It's not like, oh my God, this is my fourth fight. Oh my God, it's like no, I've had so much mat time. I know exactly what I'm doing. You have more confidence going into something like that than just the bravado of I'm never going to lose. I'm the baddest man on the planet. You'd be like, might be tough, but I don't know if I'm going to give you that title yet.
I've met some of the baddest men on the planet, and most of them have losses.
And you know what? The funny thing, I was just telling somebody, oh shit, who was I talking to? I can't remember now, but I mean, it's basically one of those things. Like, a lot of people want to win, but they don't want to do the work that requires that they need to do in order to win. They just they hope that they're going to win instead of, man, I'm going to put in all this work and then go put out my best opportunity. It's like, well, I could do all that and have a 75% chance of winning, or I could do none of that and I'll have a 20% chance of winning, but I still got a chance. You're like, oh, Jesus.
Let's see how that works out for you.
and too, I mean, just a lot of people are just not truly ready for opportunities that get given them. People that just are not there, and it's like all of a sudden, hey, here's this opportunity. You're like, all right, let's do it. And you're like, you have not been training. You're not. That's dumb. Part of the reason why I just don't take last minute fights. Like, even now, like, I just got back from Bangkok, after being there for a month, after the tryouts. I was vacationing and enjoying life. I'm a little heavy right now. So no, I'm not taking any fight in 3 weeks. Like, that's not enough time for me to get back to, where I need to go. But I know a lot of guys that'll do it. They'll be like, oh, let's do it. They'll rush a weight cut. Now they've cut too much weight. Now they're in there fighting and they feel like garbage. They're performing like garbage. And they're like, well, I took this fight last minute. I'm like, that's no longer an excuse. You don't get to just say, well, I took this fight last minute. Like, you either won, you lost, you did, you were prepared or you weren't.
Yeah.
If you weren't prepared, you shouldn't have taken the fight. And it, unless you're getting into the UFC, that's the only time I can understand taking a last minute fight.
Is a chance to get your foot in the door. Yeah. Joe Leonidas Henley was in The Ultimate Fighter. So, how many fights did you have before you got that opportunity?
Shit, I was 3-0.
3-0, really?
3-0 as a pro. Now I'd had 8 amateur fights.
Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I think 8 amateur fights, and yeah, I had 3 pro fights in, let's see, July, end of July. I want to say July 27th of 2009 was my first fight. My second fight was 3 weeks later. My next fight was about a month later, and I was
That's some Thai style there.
seriously. And it was 3-0, and then the tryouts were down in LA, and my girlfriend at the time was basically like, "Get the fuck out the door, get down there." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. Like, I'm not the level. You see some of these guys, get in there that have been fighting for 5, 10 years, 5 years, whatever, and have been fighting long enough to be like, okay, those guys are very skilled guys. But then you also saw like the Amir Sadalas that had no fights, and next thing you know, they're here winning. So she was very adamant. She kicked me out of the house. Was like, "Go," and I went down and was like, "All right." And for me, I mean, at the time I was a big middleweight. I think everybody's caught up now at this point, but I mean, a big guy, had super, bushy long hair. I looked like a caveman. And I was muscular, very big. I was still, kind of had that football weight, and yeah, it was just kind of funny how it just went down to the tryouts and rocked the tryouts. Those went well. That was a crazy experience. And then next thing you know.
That was season 11, right?
Yeah.
What were the coaches on there? I don't even remember.
Chuck and Tito.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh,
like full circle there, right?
Yeah, right.
What was the experience like? Like, I've talked to Khalil a bunch of times about his experience on the show, but you were kind of, you were in there pretty early to where, it was more of like a free for all, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay. I mean, my only thing was that the training was so different from what I was used to. And also at the time, I'd only made 85 maybe twice.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I really hadn't, and I had never thought, before August of 2009, I would have told you 185 pounds was bullshit. Like, that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
I had been as big as 270, basically had been walking around at 215, 220, since high school, since, ninth grade. And in college, it only got bigger. So, I was walking around at 240. I was like, dude, there's no way that I'm ever getting to 185 pounds. And my coach was like, "No, if you want to be a pro, that's going to be the weight you fight at." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, shit." And so yeah, I had my first fight then. But even then, man, it was a strict regiment. Really, really sparse on the food. It was just doing everything we could to get down there. And then when we're in the house, the training was just different. You're with a bunch of guys. The bravado's high. You're sparring a lot. But at the time, I didn't know how to play spar really. And again,
Right.
that's where from my experience, I always tell people, like, piss. I wish I wouldn't have gone pro that early. I wish I would have taken more fights, because there were just things that I didn't know how to play spar. I didn't know how to comfortably move. Like, I've been boxing for a while, so I knew how to box, but and I knew how to kick, and I put it all together, but I didn't, it still made me nervous. And so, you're in there and, sparring, once a day, which is something I was just not used to. I was like, man, if we spar once, in the next week, that's awesome, for most places. And too,
Yeah.
for me, I mean, it's hard being a bigger guy where I live. There's just not a lot of big guys. It's just not. It's not a thing. Even for me right now, I'd have to go down to Black House or, down to Ruka. I mean, just to find guys that are my size to actually train with. That was a big thing for me. I used to go down to Mark Munoz's gym, the Rain Training Center, and it was phenomenal because it was Mark, Brett Cooper, Jay Silva, Lou Polly, Rafa. I mean, so many guys that were down there that were 85s and above. I mean, I remember training with Satoshi Ishii, the 2008 Olympic gold medal judo fighter that fights for PFL now, and you're training with Vanderlei when he comes through, or Verdum when he comes through, Travis Brown used to come through. I mean, like, it was the who's who. Everybody just came through the gym. And so, I mean, there was always a body that was big enough to beat on you. But out here, man, at Knuckleheads, I'm the biggest guy and the biggest MMA fighter by 4 weight classes.
Oh, wow.
Almost. You know, it's like at jiu-jitsu, it's granted we got Professor Fabio, who's a monster. Kevin's a beast. I mean, now there's a bit more of us. But, you know, as far as MMA goes, I don't have any training partners my size. So that was the beauty for me, and the part of the reason of going out to Tiger was like, okay, I need guys my size. I need training partners. You know, you got to have it. And, you know, you can find it out here, but then you still got to pay to live out here. And if in order to do that, I need an actual job, you know, and then all that kind of, you know, becomes that cyclical, well, piss, I can't get to where I need to go and afford to live and do all these things. As we're in Thailand, it's like, okay, like I was able to save up some money, take those 6 months, you know, win the visa at the tryouts, and now I'm like, okay, cool. Like now I can really, let's start getting fights and see if, you know, we can, because now's the time to see, you know, is this actually gonna provide me a sustainable lifestyle for the next, you know, however many years I can still do it. Like I'm now in a position to make that happen. So now I just got to go make it happen.
Yeah. Did you guys have any crazy stuff going on in the show? Any things that like you were like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. We're fighters. What the hell's going on here?"
No, man. I mean, I think the cabin fever gets to everybody.
Yeah.
In different ways. So like for me, I went in the show so young in the game, and even fairly young, I think. I don't want to say naively, but I was just really, I was just happy to be there. I didn't, you know, when I beat Costas Philippou to get on the show, I armbarred him. And he had a good UFC career, you know, headlined some shows. I think he was ranked at like top 5 or top 6 for a while. Like, so, I mean, at the time, I mean, that was a fight I was supposed to lose for sure. He was definitely supposed to be on the show, not me. And so getting on there was crazy. But even then, just being there with a lot of those guys, they had a lot of fights. You know, they had guys that have been, you know, 6-7 year professionals that, you know, 13-1, there's 12-5, you know, you got all these guys that have had some fights. And here I am 3-0, like, well, shit, here I am, you know, and getting to train with Hackelman, and Jake Shields was one of our coaches. So he was in every day, and you're sitting there bullshitting with Jake Shields, who was just about to fight Dan Henderson in Strikeforce. Like, you know, for me, it was still, I think, a starstruck moment. Yeah. And I, being a substitute teacher, like a, you know, high school wrestling coach, football coach, like I had a lot of patience. So when everybody's kind of losing their shit, I'm just kind of looking at everybody like, all right, well, all right, you're all crazy, but, you know, no worries. You know, we had one guy, like, you know, they'd steal some guy's Oreos and he'd lose his shit, or he'd steal the 8-ball, like, fuck you guys. And you're like, seriously, like we're children. We're literally children right now. What the fuck is wrong with you guys? You know, I remember I was saving. How's this for a kick? So they used to bring us in tap out gear, right? They would just, you know, throw us all the tap out gear we needed, and I didn't need a lot. So at the time, I was like, well, I'll just put this stuff away, put it under my bed, give it to friends and family after I leave. Awesome. So then one day, one of the guys snakes it, steals it, and it's just gone. And I'm like, all right. And I just didn't really, I was like, where could it have gone? Like, it's in one, like, what are you going to do? You're going to steal more of my tap out shirts? Like as if you didn't get the whole, like, I just wasn't worried about it. And I think like a couple of guys were waiting, like, come on, he's going to lose this shit. He's going to lose this shit. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. No, I'm good. It'll come up eventually. You know what I mean? Fuck, there are cameras everywhere. Like, I'm not worried about it. And, but it was funny. So I really never really lost my shit, even when everybody was kind of going crazy. You know, it was just one of those things that was just like, well, shit, here we are.
Who took the gear?
Kyle Noak. Which is funny because Noak's one of the nicest guys. I mean, we had a lot of cool guys in the show. I don't connect with people typically very fast. Yeah. Especially in those situations. So I normally, like, I don't have anybody that I'm like, man, I still talk to my friends from The Ultimate Fighter. No, not really. Yeah. I mean, like, all those guys are cool, but at the same time, it's not like, man, you know, I made the homies. No, they were just cool dudes that we were training with for a while. So, and not, obviously that's more speaking to my, just kind of, I just don't get close to people like that. But, I mean, it was a good experience, and it was a lot of fun. It's crazy. 6 weeks being away, you do get a little cabin fever-ish.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, you guys didn't have like no TV, and they said no music too.
No
Did you guys
music,
have that?
no TV.
Jesus.
Yep. You couldn't.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, because you got to think about it. One, it's playing on TV, so copyright
Oh, that
issues.
makes sense.
But also, if they need to edit anything awkwardly, and there's songs playing in the background, now they have to edit that too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like we
I
could.
didn't even think about that. That makes sense.
We couldn't even do like sing in the house because they're like, guys, Jesus, come on.
Jesus.
Like,
But well, they do edit a lot of stuff to hype it up too. So
and that was one thing that I didn't think that they did as much as everybody asked if they did. Oh my God, was all this set up? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because I mean, nobody used me to set me up for anything. I was not, a hype guy, as far as the back end things go. So I don't, things went down kind of like I saw them going down. So even, I only watched it the one time when it aired. I've never seen it again. I've never watched an episode after.
really,
And even then, I only watched it because we were doing viewing parties. And so I had viewing parties every week, and we'd give out, we'd have raffles and do all this stuff, and find out what happens next week like that.
Yeah.
But that was the only time I ever actually watched the show. I have the DVD, but for me, I was so young and so inexperienced to get the one, what feels like the big break,
right?
and then never really to, I'll still remember Dana White sitting after the thing. He's like, hey, everybody's going to profit from being on the show. You're going to be able to go off and you're going to get paid more money at these little shows because you were here, or because you were, which one, I don't know how much that really went through, but, it just was one of those things where you're like, all right, well, and so for me now it's been hard. I mean, I always told people, I'm like, I'm not going to get back in the UFC unless I go, 10-0 undefeated. Because at the time, I didn't, my stand-up game wasn't something that anybody was watching, for anything good. And Dana and them didn't like my fight. So I'm like, I'm going to have to, like, all of a sudden start knocking people out. I got to do something big, which I think kind of played a little detriment for me, because there were fights where I didn't just move to my strength. Instead, I was like, okay, let's try to, be this guy, let's try to be Khalil. I'm like, that's not me. I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. Yeah, I want to kick you. Yeah, I want to punch you. But ultimately, I want to choke you. Like,
of course,
that's just what I want to do. So, why I would shy away from that, or, for me, that was a mindset thing that I think has been a problem, had been a problem for a couple of years. And now I don't have that at all. Now I'm like, nope, I'm choking everybody.
Yeah, you're trying to fit the mold of what will sell, and give you that that opportunity.
Yeah. Right, and you're just, because that's the thing. I mean, everybody asks that. They're like, how do you get into the UFC? I'm like, well, you don't. At least now they have the Contender Series, so you're like, okay. But even then, you're like, I've seen really good fighters lose to not very good fighters on that, where you're like, it's not, with the UFC, it's really an invite only party. And how you get the invite, typically it's either you make a whole lot of noise, or you get a last minute break where somebody knew somebody that their management's in really well with the UFC, and there you go, and you're like, well, shit, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely in the elite club. I mean, people aren't just there. It's not a walk-on squad. You got to have some in to get in there now.
And to be honest, I mean, I kind of like it. I'm like, I think it's, it's one of those things that it should be very exclusive, but it would be at least nice to know, like, if they had regional rankings that were legit, and you had an idea, not just like, well, if I'm the LFA champion, I might get in, and if I'm the M1 champion, I might get in. Now, I mean, at least now they're kind of making that more well known, like LFA guys. If you're a champion in LFA, you're probably going into the UFC, or at least onto Dana White's Contender Series fights. Or, if you're the M1 Global Champion, there's a good chance that you're going to be in the UFC. Like, at least those things are nice. But before it was like, well, shit, I have no idea. Like,
Well, yeah, there wasn't really any notarized like feeder organizations, back 10 years ago.
I'm surprised they haven't. To me, that's one of the beauties and downfalls of American sports is, the college system gives you such a great way to watch young prospects and to see them develop and to see who's really going to be a good high-level professional, as where, you still see shitty matchups out here and you still see guys that, oh man, I'm 10-0. Your total 10 opponents were 5-40. Like,
Yeah.
you haven't fought anybody that was worth the shit. And yet here you are 10-0 and you're in the UFC. And I'm like, you watch those guys, become fodder and you're like, well, all right. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So,
How many fights? So you only had 3 before you went in. So you had what, 13 afterwards?
yeah, so far. And even then, I mean, I missed a few years from poor personal decisions, a little run with, alcoholism. And, I mean, there was a few years, I want to say from 2014 to 2016, actually even 2017 was basically a wash. It was just shitty life choices and, injuries, because I had the 2 hand surgeries. I've separated both shoulders. I mean, had fights fall out from injury, and everybody does, but there were more personal choices there that were very detrimental to doing the right thing. And I was just in that weird space where I was working, and so I had a little money. So then I'm doing things, and the fighting's you know what I mean. And so it kind of lost the focus there for a little bit. But luckily for me, I'm not like a big war guy. Like, let's go out there and just bite in our mouthpiece and swing as hard as we can, and get basically really fucked up and
Yeah.
be known for that guy. I'm like, I'd prefer not to be that guy. Don't get me wrong, I want to knock everybody out and choke everybody, but I'm not going to just duck my head and get beat up. So I haven't had the beating that a lot of guys with a 10-year career have had.
Yeah.
So for me, getting into it, still being 36, like, I don't feel the wear and tear that, say a Cerrone may feel, having as many
Right.
fights as he had. So I still feel like, just because I'm 36, that's not a detriment. You know what I mean? If anything, it's actually probably playing to my advantage right now, and just in terms of mindset and knowing what I need to get done. And so now it's just adjusting the training, because I can't. I mean, I honestly, I can't train like some of these cats can train. These guys that, are on the mat in Thailand for 3 hours in the morning, and then, they go home and they, eat a banana and they go back and they do another 4 hours a night. I'm like, hey, my body won't do that. That's
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, like, I caught staph 4 times in 4 months while I was there. And it wasn't, now don't get me wrong, like, the mats can be a little gross because, it's a destination spot. Everybody's coming in for 30 days, maybe a week. If most people get something out there, although they absolutely should stay off the mat, probably don't. And
Oh, hell
it's
no.
not even fighters. And it's not even fighters, because you have, the beginner wrestling class, the beginner MMA class, the striking class, the this, the that, the private jiu-jitsu, there's so many people. Like, how could you keep it off? So many hygiene variances between people and cultures, and, trying to keep it off, impossible off the mat. But, if your immune system isn't deteriorated and beat to shit, you could probably fight most of it off. You know what I mean? As long as you're showering, you're taking the right precautions, like, your immune system will be okay. And, like, I never had a problem with ringworm in high school or when I was coaching. Like, I never had anything out here. But I feel like now that I'm out there, when I overtrain, my immune system goes to shit and I catch it like that.
What I'll do for you is, like I told you before, Defense Soap sponsors my website, and I'll hit them up. So before you go back, I'll get them to. Then they're over in Cali. They'll send you a box of soap, and you take that with you. That's what I took with me for the year that I was out there. They sent me a box, had all the bar soaps, the antibacterial soap. So We'll see if we can get them to hook you up before you go back, because that place is not the cleanest place on the planet.
Not at all. I think I've worked with them in the past. I had something coming up that they hooked me up with.
Yeah,
They
super
were
cool
they were
guys.
good people. Yeah, very.
All right, so you got 13 fights. Your last fight was in November of 2018.
Yeah, last year.
So, and then that was November, and you said you went out to Tiger in January.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
clicked? Like, what was like your last
Well,
fight? Was it a good fight, a bad fight? Or is it like an uplifting thing where you were, yeah, yo, I'm going, I got to do this. This is my run. You know, what was that? What was the mindset?
No, I had been thinking like it had been in the mind. So I bought my ticket in August.
Oh, okay.
That I was going to leave in January, and so I was like, all right, cool. And so we were trying. I wanted to get a fight before I went, and we were on an LFA card. We were going to fight Blake Troop, and then he got hurt like I think a week or two before the fight, and then like this one what's his name? My opponent was actually supposed to do like a bare knuckle fight, but then that fell through for him. So it just kind of both fell together for us to both be on, match up on the Golden Boy card. So it was great. But I had been thinking, like, man, I really, I was tired of work. I wasn't really happy. And I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, well, I never really gave it my best shot. I just always let it be a 70-30. It was always the 30 in my life, even though I loved it more, but I just never gave it my full attention. And so I was like, nope, here we go. So booked the trip, and then winning that fight and having it be the biggest purse I'd won to date, that was a big boost to that made me feel comfortable in terms of once I paid everybody, I'm like, okay, well now I got a little nugget because people were saying, you can really live out there for very, very cheap. And I'm like, okay. So a couple $1,000s should be able to get me through 6 months. And they're like, yeah, you get 3,000 or 4,000, you're fine. And so having that from the fight was great. And then I was able to put, I was obviously working, making a good salary, so I was putting big chunks of money away. And so really it was just saving enough to say, okay, here we go. Because I really wanted to take the first 6 months. Like I didn't want to get out there and be like, okay, let's take a fight, but then not enjoy the training or feel like the training shit, but now I'm on the hook for a fight.
Yeah.
Not my best, so I was like, no, I'm going to take 6 months. I'm just going to learn. Like, let's just get the vibe out here. Let's feel how, the cycles come with people coming in, people coming out. And that's when they were like, oh, the tryouts are going on. You're like, oh, okay, well, cool. Like, what do those entail? Because I had never heard of them before this. And so that's when they were like, dude, you should do the tryouts. They come with a visa, this, and that. And so much has happened over the last 6 months. But yeah, it was a good learning experience and opportunity. And now that I have the visa to go back, now it's really that time where it's like, okay, now I can really get after it and start grinding away, because I want to compete internationally too, not only MMA, but I want to do more jiu-jitsu tournaments. I want to, really get competitive in these years. So it'll be a big blessing and a good thing to have that visa, and now I can just kind of get it running.
Yeah, definitely. And so like you said, you didn't really hear about the tryouts. I've watched the videos and they look intense. So I remember, like, I didn't know you were doing the tryouts, and I was sitting at dinner with Khalil and one of the other girls from Tiger, and they were like, yeah, Joe's going to do the tryouts. And I was like, oh, wow. So you decided to do the tryouts. I'm sure they talked you into it. You had been there long enough. Day one, how does the tryouts go? Like you didn't know what to expect, right? I mean, I'm sure the guys kind of gave you an idea.
Yeah, they all tell you, they're like, well, they usually do a beach workout. It's really only 3 days. It's really 3 days of two-a-days, but they're brutal two-a-days. And especially from the MMA side, I mean, the cardio aspect. So the very first thing we did, we were supposed to do like a beach run on Tuesday morning, and literally it is pouring, like it is pissing down rain, and everybody's like, well, shit, like, guess we can't do that. And so they end up running us through, still, in my opinion, a very good workout that morning. But I feel like everybody was like, I don't know if that saved us a little bit or addicted us a little bit. I'm like, all right. So, and then that afternoon for the MMA side was wrestling, which was just brutal to a degree, where it was just like, I am just hoping to get up. I mean, like the entire mat easily had a 1/4 inch of sweat pooled over
And these are
it.
big mats.
Yeah, and it's me, Glenn Sparv, and one of the other guys trying out, Abraham. He's a big fella, and we're just, I mean, drenched, looking stupid. I could barely, my face. Glenn's just pushing my head into, basically trying to drown me. I'm like, this is dull. But a lot of the workouts were like that. At least the first day. The next day, not as bad, I guess you could say. Like we had striking in the morning, and then we had jiu-jitsu in the evening, and then the very last day is when we had the big Buddha run, and then the mitt session. So,
So
I mean, it was
Kurt and I actually walked, like, Shillong Circle, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so Kurt and I stayed by Shillong Circle, and then Kurt stayed a little down the road when he was there because he was at AKA for a while, and we met up at the Circle, and we walked from the Circle up to Big Buddha. So for you guys to do the run, Kurt and I were joking. I'm like, how the hell does anyone do this run? If somebody's never been there, I remember that there's times that we're walking up it that I was walking backwards because my calves were killing because the road is so steep. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. I was glad. I ran it a couple of times prior. I think 2 times prior to that, just to get a sense. But I mean, and it's interesting seeing the different ways people do it. Some people walked and then ran and did.
Yeah.
I was like, for me, it's being basically I was about 100 kilo at the time, and I'm like, okay, I can't stop. If I stop to like walk, I'm not getting this momentum moving again. So for me, it was just that constant like. And it worked. I mean, I ended up beating some of these little skinny guys, and get them.
Do they time you?
So, yeah. So I think I was right around 29 minutes, maybe a little after.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with it. I'm like, that works for me, So, but it was fun. The whole thing was fun. It was cool just being around all those guys and girls. Just that experience, just another bonding experience when you see everybody training hard and fighting and doing all that stuff.
How many people were there just to? Because I know that. So they do a Muay Thai sponsorship, right? Like how do they break that up? There's a certain amount of Muay Thai and there's a certain amount of MMA.
I think they gave out 10 full scholarships and then my visa. So.
Oh, okay.
I think. God, I can't remember how many guys were doing the Muay Thai. But I mean, they did. They kind of split it that way. They were like, all right, there's, 30 guys doing, or 20 guys doing MMA, 20 guys doing Muay Thai. No, there had to have been more than that. There was definitely more than that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, they'd split us up. So we did the Buddha run together. We did the cardio together. We did the striking together, and then like the wrestling and jiu-jitsu were obviously separate. And then we all did mitts together at the end. So.
Oh, okay. And then that was followed up by the barbecue beatdown and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, that was a good time. Jesus.
I've seen the videos and heard some stories.
We got after it that night.
Yeah.
That was a celebratory
Well, I'm not gonna
night.
say I've seen you salsa dancing before, so I don't know.
Yeah. I can't speak to how well we did things, but we did do things.
Yes. So when do you get to go back? How long are you in the States?
I'm planning on heading back the second week of September. I'm just waiting for the visa paperwork to get out to me now, and then I can kind of start that process. I don't know exactly how long it takes. I think
it's an educational visa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it shouldn't even take that long, honestly. And then you get to go back. So, are you on? Are they expecting you to fight, or what do they expect out of giving you the visa?
The contract. I mean, it's basically the fighter contract for Tiger. You end up, I think they expect at least three fights a year, whether that be MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, anything like that. I'm not sure if jiu-jitsu counts. I think it should, but I'm not sure. So that's kind of that. The kind of expectation there. So really, once we get back, it's like even right now, I'm taking this month to get the weight back into the range it needs to be. And then it's, for me, once I walk around, 95 kilo, 94, that for me is within shooting distance of 185. So, or 84 kilos. So once I get there, and then it's like, okay, now I can take a fight within 3 weeks, So once I get back, it's really looking to just get as active as possible, whether that be kickboxing in China or MMA somewhere or a jiu-jitsu tournament somewhere. I mean, I really don't care. I just want to get after it and have something to drive and shoot for. So
that's pretty cool. All right. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much up to date. You get going back to Thailand, and hopefully Kurt's going over next year, I believe, and hopefully I get back there within the next couple months too. And
nice.
When I get back, I think my plan is to base myself in Bangkok. So, that's super easy to get around, and we'll hang out and see what else is going on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my lady, I'll be there.
What's that? Oh, yeah, your girl works in Thailand, right?
Yep, she lives in Bangkok, so I will be there often.
That doesn't hurt. Couple questions. So, like, you've been in the game long enough. Do you have any particular fighters that you look up to? I mean, whether it be jiu-jitsu or size-wise or whatever, like, how many pro fighters that you're like, not that you want to emulate, but that you look up to, in general?
More. I mean, I think there's more guys that you admire specific guys for specific things. I love Donald Cerrone's attitude.
Yeah.
He's basically just all smiles and just likes kicking ass. So he's gonna go live the best life he can. Whether that be drinking beer on his ranch, training, doing whatever, and then still fighting and doing it at a high level and doing good things. I think that's a guy that I like to. I would hope that my attitude and my ability, to enjoy the game, mimic, the way that he's enjoying the game. It's not just all fight, but it's not just all life. You got to have a good balance. So I do enjoy, following him on social media and things like that. As far as like skill level, I mean, I as much as you don't want to say it, John Jones is always coming out with, amazing things. So the way that he approaches a fight in the cage, you can always have admiration for his skill set. Can't really speak to the person because I don't know him, but
right up until our buddy beats him. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I love watching Khalil. With the new skill set that he brought in. Amazing. So I'm really looking forward to watching and seeing how he kind of develops that skill set and how he really implements that. I think that's going to be fun to watch in the future.
Definitely.
It also sounds stupid, but Colby Covington, now don't get me wrong, I can't stand listening to anything that ever comes out of his mouth. But when he's in the cage, I like how he puts together his striking and his wrestling and is not afraid to grapple and really goes out there and really puts on a pressure style fighting, but not like a stupid pressure style, not like somebody that's just throwing to trying to put the output out there, and like he actually seems like a skilled guy. So I do enjoy watching his fights, and I think a lot of the welterweight division right now is somebody that you really enjoy watching those guys fight. I think that's probably one of the more entertaining weight classes right now. To be honest, in my own weight class, it's a little hard. Like, Jack Marsh, I think is it Jack Marshman? Is he the guy that just beat Jacare?
I don't even know.
I'm not even sure.
I'm so out of the loop right now with coming back, and like when I was there, it was harder to watch fights, and now that I'm back, I'm still trying to follow one, and that's even harder because like when we just started talking, there was a one event just finishing.
Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, like the middleweight division's got Israel right now, but I like him. I think he's entertaining. I think he's very skilled, amazingly skilled. But after that, you kind of forget about some of the names.
Definitely.
I mean, like Jacare. I used to love watching Jacare fight, but he used to do I thought I at least felt like he used to use his grappling a little bit more, and now it's trying to knock people out with one big punch, and you're like, all right, man, that's a one-trick pony that I'd rather not see.
Yeah.
I used to be a big fan of watching Luke Rockhold fight, but God, ever since his shin injury, just that last fight was just gross. Like I was like, what is he doing? It just didn't seem like him. And so you find, a lot of the guys that I think I used to really be more enamored with watching because of their full skill set just don't necessarily use their full skill sets anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's just not as fun. So to be honest, I'm not the biggest fight fan. Like I see a lot of guys that are getting fights that I don't think are super skilled. And don't get me wrong, now, I'm not saying that from like, I'm the world beater. I am the one, Chris and me, I can beat everybody. But when you just watch their skill sets, you're like, like that's not, I don't feel like a lot of people are so good that it's like, man, I got to watch. Now, one guy, Tony Ferguson, is insane to watch. Like I'll watch that guy in any fight at any weight class, anytime he wants to fight. I think that guy, well, it's crazy. I used to train with him in Ventura, and he's a nice guy, but he's also a bit off. You know what I mean?
Like, that shows.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can't. When you see him, the way that he hypes himself up, is so unique. It's very much just him. Like you're watching his open workouts, and he's breakdancing, he's doing that. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going on between your ears. I'm not sure. But when you get in the cage, you do all the things you need to do. So anytime he gets in the cage, I'm like, I'm watching. That's a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
I'll chip in on. Like, let's do that. But a lot of it is just even the stuff he does, you're just watching it like, how did you make that work? Like, his
very talented.
His self-belief, though, is the strongest thing you've ever seen in the world. Like, if he told me he was going to fly one day, I'd be like, I don't think that's possible. But if anybody's going to do it,
I'd be there to watch and see if it happened.
Yeah, shit. All right, let's go, man. I'll clap for you. I want to see you succeed. So, those are probably, my overall around guys. It's just hard in the game when you just so many fights look the same, and they're just nobody's really doing anything unique with it. It's just, you're all, you're literally all one punch away from, doing something stupid. So
they're all one punch away from being ranked number 2. So
yeah, right. That's the crazy thing. I mean, that's the crazy thing with MMA is it's still, you get those guys that just swing for the fences.
Yeah.
And you get a knockout where you're like, wow, oh, that guy's terrible. How did he beat that guy?
He's the most dangerous person in the sport. It just the whole way it's marketed now is really odd.
Yeah. So, but it's it's what people want. So, for me, I'm gonna stick back to I love fighting. I want to do this technically. I want to choke and submit people. Like I want to be a good fighter. I'm not just chucking rocks and hoping for the best. And
realistically, if UFC called you tomorrow and was like, look, we forgot about you. We're going to give you your shot. You can pick anybody that you want to fight.
Oh, shit. I mean, God, really? I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't necessarily have
want like a Damian Maia? Do you want do you want a striker? Do you want, if they were like, you got anybody you want, this is your shot, you're getting whatever money you wanted, but you wanted to test yourself and whatever you wanted to do. But like, you got one guy, whatever you want. You want Jones, you can have Jones, anybody you wanted.
Yeah, shit. I don't know. I might take Israel.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a good fight.
I mean, I think his skill set is amazing, but I also don't, being as young in the game as he is, I think there are some cracks on the ground that you could take advantage of. You know what I mean? And MMA is one of those things. I mean, what did John Jones say? Like, don't talk to me about striking. You just got lit up by a 3-foot wrestler.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of people have been lit up by that 3-foot wrestler. So I'm not gonna, we're not discounting Kevin Gaslam's hands. That man can throw strikes. he'd be a fun fight too. I would be more than happy, to get that fight. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, at this point, I'll tell you, I really just like fighting. So, I would love to basically make a livable wage. So if I can make livable money, I'll fight anybody. It's like I don't have that dream fight for me. It's just almost like a Cerrone mentality. Like, yo, give me 4 fights a year, put anybody you want in the way, and let's have fun with all of them.
Yeah, then it becomes your job and you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
All right, I'm gonna let you go here in just a minute, but I got 3 questions for you that have absolutely nothing to do, well, a little something to do with life. So, first one, so when you are having to cut the weight to 85, what is your favorite cheat meal when you get a chance to do it?
I'm always a donut guy.
Donuts.
Donuts don't suck.
No, donuts are my deal.
All right. Any particular donut? I know Thailand has
there's
weird-ass donuts.
And there's a shop in Newbury Park called Star Donuts, and they make this like a roll, but it's got like chocolate chips inside of it and like little chocolate swirls, and then on top it's chocolate frosting with chocolate chips on top of that.
Jesus.
They make the best one that I've ever had. And then there's another spot down in Camarillo, which is all down this way, called Rolling Pin, and they do all their donuts fresh at like midnight or like 11 o'clock. They start cooking, and so on the weekends, you get out of the bar and you'd go over here and you'd get just a fresh donut straight out of the grease. And they had these raised glazed pink sprinkled frosting donuts that were just mind blowing.
Great after the
as
bar.
You can tell, as you can tell, I enjoy it.
What's your favorite go-to movie? Inspirational, entertaining, whatever it is.
And
Gladiator is always a good one.
That is a great one.
Yeah. 300, obviously.
Like so you're definitely into the man's movies.
Yeah. That or my favorite movie of all time was Bloodsport.
Yeah.
Can't hate that.
The early MMA.
Yeah. All right, and the last one, and then we're gonna let you go. Is do aliens exist?
I would assume so.
What do you think, though?
I feel like they do. I feel like we just have not gotten to a level where we can actually get out there and get to them. Like, I feel like the universe is a much bigger place, and to think that we are the only ones is a little crazy. Now, I'm not sure, but to say that, I'm like, I'm not gonna go out. I'm gonna say it's a probability. I would say it's very possible.
They're here. You just don't know it yet.
Exactly.
All right, Joe. We're gonna let you go. It's been great talking with you, and I'll definitely see you when I get back over to Thailand. We'll hang out, eat some barbecue.
Definitely.
Some fun
stuff.
I
appreciate you guys having me on. That was definitely fun.
Like I said, we just talk, get to know you. That's more of like, I don't want to just know your fight career and stuff like that. I want people to know like the guests that we have on a different level. That's
a beautiful thing. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate it. Like I said, I'll hit you up when I get over in Bangkok. And wonderful. I'll reach out to Defense Soap, see if they can get you a box before you take off.
That would be much appreciated.
Get that staff down. That stuff's not fun.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you later. If you want to support us, make sure you go to our anchor.fm/Fight Chase. On that page, you can support us. There's a little support icon for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help support us, help us get back to Thailand. Not that that's your job, but it'll help. You can help us get more guests. We're going to have more guests on. We have some fighters coming up, some social media guys coming up, and we'll be able to get those out for you. We're also released all of our episodes on YouTube. They're all on Fight Chase on YouTube, and there's a playlist, so you can listen to all the episodes on YouTube. We are also now on Apple. We are on Spotify. We're on Google. So we are on all the streaming platforms you can listen to the podcast. Here's what I need you guys to do. All 20 of you that are listening to this, tell one person. That's it. One person. So guess what? That's 40 people that'll listen. And then before you know it, we'll have 60 or 80. And that'd be great. So tell your friends. And other than that, Kurt, social media, what do you got going on?
Carson Kickboxing Club, Instagram, and Facebook.
And follow Fight Chase on Facebook and Instagram. And you can add the Fight Chase podcast on Instagram. And we'll be posting on there also. Other than that, we are out of here. And guess what? Don't say boom.
Boom.